Today we're going to put ourselves in a client's shoes, what they want from an illustrator, what makes a good impression, and what they're not going to like. This is really important to consider. It's very easy to get wrapped up in your part as a freelancer, worrying about how much money you're getting paid, if you've got enough time to do the work, or whatever else. But as commercial artists, we are providing a service to a client who needs a job doing, and we've got to make sure the client is getting what they want. First, we'll look at what the client needs, then we'll talk about how you can make it a really positive experience for both of you, and finally, we'll look at some of the things clients are going to find frustrating in a project. If you hire a builder, they build what you want them to build, not what they want to build, but they make suggestions on what will work best based on their skills and their experience. You pay for the job to get done, but you also pay for their expertise because they can build better than you can. If your client could illustrate something really good themselves, they wouldn't hire you, so they need your input and creative vision. You're not a builder, of course, you're a creative professional. You want great new work for your portfolio too. That's what's going to lead to more work in the future. So you'll want to put your stamp and your style on the project. So there's a balance to be struck. Both of you working together on a project will make it the best it can be. You understand your craft and what works well, and they share their goals with you, so you can provide the best outcome to achieve those goals. Understanding the client's needs. So let's talk about the client's goals first. They want an illustration for a specific purpose, and they tell you what that purpose is through a brief. Briefs come in all shapes and sizes, but generally it'll tell you what the illustration is for, what it's supposed to communicate, what size it should be, and sometimes who it's for. The who it's for part is sometimes left out, but it's an important part. Most likely the illustration is for a client's existing customers who could be users of a product or readers of a magazine, or it's for new people they want to attract to their business. That's what advertising is for. So if the client doesn't tell you who it's for, ask them, because when you know who the project is aimed at, you can more accurately position your illustration to appeal to that kind of person. A client wouldn't be spending money on illustration if they weren't going to get something from it that benefits their company, a return on their investment. Most of the time that can be traced back to them making more sales or attracting new customers to their brand, their book, their software, etc. So if you start with the client's customers in mind, immediately you're going to be able to do a better job for your client by being sensitive to what their goal is. If it's a packaging project, you can ask what kinds of people typically buy the product and what they will find appealing. If it's a magazine, you can think about who their typical readers are and what they like to look at. You should also take the time to look at the client's brand and consider how your work can be a complementary addition to it. If you were to make something that doesn't align with their overall brand, it's not going to resonate with the client or their customers. They're hiring you for your style, so that means they think your style is a good fit for them. That's a good start. But if you adapt your work to fit better with their brand, that's going to be great for your client. And you can tell them that too. If you say to your client, I've chosen these colors or characters because I think they'll resonate with your audience, then you're going above and beyond and they're going to love you for it. You can research the client's brand through their social media, website, existing products or previous advertising campaigns. A lot of companies love to share their brand values. If they're really environmentally conscious or have a focus on giving back to their community, you can discover that pretty easily and reflect those values back to the client in your work. If you're liking this video so far, give me a thumbs up. Providing a positive client experience. Practically speaking, there are a lot of things you can do to make the project a more positive experience for your client. If you can do that, they're going to be eager to work with you again in the future. Communication is a big one. You should ask your client questions about the project and their brand and their customers and really show that you're interested. In How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie wrote, "Being interested in others makes you interesting." And it's true. If you've ever been on a date where the other person talks about themselves the whole time, you're probably not going to be as keen as you would be if they seem genuinely interested in finding out more about you. This works in business too. If you're talking to a small business owner who founded the business and loves it and is proud of what they've built, and you ask genuine questions and express your interest and enthusiasm for learning more about it, they're going to feel really good about hiring you. It might not work so well if you're talking to an art director for a faceless megacorp who hates their job, but it certainly can't hurt. So be interested in the client and have a conversation about their business. More general communication tips would be to be polite, friendly, and clear in what you say or type. Some people are absolute naturals at building rapport with their clients. My colleague Katie is one of those people, and I've tried to learn from her natural skill in that area. She's interested in other people, she enjoys talking to them, and people enjoy talking to her. I've always been rather functional in the way I communicate, perhaps a consequence of being a lonely child. Only child, and not unfriendly, but perhaps more efficient than I need to be. It's great in the short term because it gets jobs done quickly and without fuss, but I've come to the realization recently that it's a short-term way of thinking. Sure, this job goes well and it's done and dusted, but I don't have the same connection with clients that someone like Katie might. The people she works with will remember a really positive experience and they'll be happy to work with Katie long term. I'm an introvert, and maybe some of you are too, so it doesn't come naturally, but it's worth practicing because it won't just serve you in the short term, it'll set you up for a long career with clients who really like working with you. It's also good to be timely in your communication. Be quick and be responsive. Don't leave people hanging for an answer for 3 days, and send regular updates throughout a project to put your client's mind at ease. If a client hires you for the first time, they don't know you, they don't know how you work, so communicate. Tell them what you're working on and when, and let them know when you'll be sending them some work to review. This builds trust and confidence in working with you. It means your client has one thing less to worry about if they know you're on it. Take that worry away. Hit your deadlines and deliver quality work. I don't think that needs any further explanation, hopefully, but anything you deliver to your client should be as good or better than what's in your portfolio. Otherwise, they're going to be disappointed. Over-deliver if you can, just make sure you don't under-deliver. Don't be a pancreas. It's under-deliver. I'm sorry. That seemed really funny when I wrote it. These are all ways you can demonstrate to your client that you're reliable and professional. That's who they want to work with. I would bet that a lot of clients would rather work with a newer artist who's reliable and professional than one who's a real hotshot but super flaky. Those artists make other people's life harder by not thinking about what the client needs. If you make your client's job harder than it needs to be, they won't come back a second time. Avoid common client frustrations. Aside from bad communication and being unreliable, there are some common things that are going to be really frustrating for your clients. Misunderstanding a brief is not necessarily your fault if the brief isn't written or explained well, but you can take that possibility out of the equation by talking to the client at the start of the project so you understand the brief completely. Take responsibility for it and you'll save yourself and your client the possible headache later on in the project. You're not always going to be able to understand a project completely. Let's say you're working on some complex scientific project or a really dull corporate brief. You don't need to understand the science or the business strategy, but you can make sure you know what the client needs from you and what your work needs to communicate. Ask as many questions as you need to get to that point. Be receptive to feedback. I mentioned at the start that you are providing a service. You might have some ideas for the project and you want it to look good in your portfolio. But when you're being paid to illustrate, you have to prioritize the client's goal. If they give you some feedback that doesn't align with your vision for the project, that's their right. They're paying you for it, so you have to take it on board. Now, you might be able to discuss it and make some suggestions based on what you think will work best. They won't always take your suggestions, but you can try. If they don't like your ideas, you're a professional. Accept it gracefully and keep a positive attitude. Don't let it ruin the project or the relationship. Remember, think long term. Maybe the project won't be what you hoped it would be this time, but if you act like a professional, maybe the next job they send your way will. I mentioned deadlines already, but being organized with your time is so essential for maintaining good relationships with clients. Often as a freelancer, you'll be juggling multiple projects with different clients. They probably know that, but they definitely don't want to hear it as an excuse for missing a deadline. All that does is tell them you prioritized some other client over them, and that's not going to make them feel very special. Being good with time management is a skill, and it comes with practice. Start practicing early before you really need it. Then when you are juggling 5 or 6 or 20 projects, it'll be easy-ish. So we've covered a lot here. Basically, it's customer service. Make your clients feel really good about choosing to work with you. Make their life easier and build a positive relationship with them. And do that with every client you work with, and that investment will pay off for the rest of your career. Think long term. Think about your clients' needs and prioritize them. Thanks for watching. See you next time.